And those business objectives could be, as you are looking at yourself as a entrepreneur, and you're looking at your own life through the lens of entrepreneur. So not necessarily that you're going to be starting a business per se, but how to look at your own goals, your own aspirations, your own desires, and look at that through entrepreneurial lens, and how to create a life that you'd like to have. So while we are using the word entrepreneurial, and maybe you might believe that it is, it's about creating a business, it's actually creating a life, as well as creating a business. And so I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Here we go. And let's see. And these are the questions that we had. I left you with last time we met a few days ago, and questions where you don't have to answer specifically those questions, but this is something to start discussion. And it would be, we discussed a lot your talents, skills, knowledge, and that they can become strengths, in a in the right combination. While you have that combination of your talents that can become strength, what value do you think you can bring to the world? And we're talking about through the lens. Remember, we talked about there are some people who are good at strategizing, who are good at implementing. There are some relationship building people. So what kind of value do you bring to the world through that lens of your strength? Have you thought about massively transformative purpose? Elon Musk is very clear about his, and you're all young, but you might have it already, or you are trying to figure it out. And once you think of that, what mindset would you need to have to succeed? What might be missing right now that you are ready to acknowledge and start working on changing? And what has been working for you up to this point, and that you'd like to bring with you on your life journey? So those are the questions. They're generic questions. There is really no specifics that that I'd like to hear from you. Just overall overview of what we talked about last time. So I'm gonna stop sharing for now so that we can all see each other. And who'd like to start us off with the conversation? Anyone? Okay, yes.
Can you clarify what the question was?
The question, you can talk about everything that we discussed last time. So what strengths and talents that you recognize in yourself, and what value, based on those talents, what value do you think you can bring to the world? And then if you do have a purpose in life that you already identified, what would that be, and what kind of mindset you would like to bring with you to make it happen? What do you need to acquire? What kind of mindset? What do you need to work on? And certain mindsets that worked for you up to this point that you'd like to bring with you.
I guess I'll start. So, one of the talents I think that would drive my entrepreneur mindset would be my artistry. I'm very artistic. I like, art in all forms, physical, in all ways. So I think that would be my main focus going into finding my entrepreneurial mindset, focusing on what I can bring to the world through art in any form. I don't have a specific purpose yet, or like a big goal in mind. I just am kind of like I said last time, going with the flow. And hopefully one day I'll find that place. But until then, just having fun exploring the artistry of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Okay, who's gonna be next?
I think that you guys hear me all right.
Mm-hmm.
So I have strong communication skills as well as learning skills. So I always like to take in new information. I'm kind of good at learning new things, establishing concepts out of things I don't know much about. And then my communication skills also help me out in the real world because I can kind of socialize with anybody, start a conversation with anybody, perceive what I'm taking in from somebody in like a good way, in a strong way, and that gives me strong like analytical skills and strategic skills in the entrepreneurship mindset. So I think in the team aspect, I could bring strong strategic skills, kind of analyze what's going on, put my own input into something, and develop an idea with my team.
Mm-hmm. Great. Sounds good.
Yeah, that's yes. And as for me, I think it's a bit of a it's a bit of a strange hut because over the past like 3 days that it has been, I haven't noticed that my best mindset and the thing that I'm really like good at is maximizing. So if I were to bring something to a team, it would be like that guy that always goes around saying, "No, no, let's get this to the very best condition that it can be, and nothing less will do." Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's great.
I can share.
Sure.
So for me, yeah, I mean, what I can bring is I feel I have more of a grasp of command and context in terms of my analytical side, which means for me that I like to look at history to make sure that I understand what happened in the past, to make sure that the good stuff happens again and the bad stuff doesn't happen again. In terms of my purpose, I'd say I haven't completely figured it out in the context of the discussion that we've been having, but I kind of understand it in the context of what I do right now in my field of work. So yeah, I'm grateful that I get to understand that I think there are things that that I can do and that there are things that I can't do, and I think building a team is the best way to figuring out how to make sure that all the bases are covered, because every gift or every talent is useful in its own special way.
Yeah, that's great. How about Andrew, your left?
Yeah, I would say my most powerful trait is my strategic skills, and that's because I've done a lot of strategizing, and what I do, which is computer science, I have to strategize a lot before I have to think of ways I can solve this problem ahead of time. So when I approach it, that I'm ready. And also, I do love learning. If it's an interesting subject, I will dive into it, spend hours learning about it. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's great. So we're gonna move to I'm gonna share the screen again, and I'm gonna move to the next set of questions, which is gonna be kind of in line with not kind of, it's going to be in line with what we are discussing right now. And what change would you like to see in the world, your country, your community? How will you do it? What would the world, your country, your community look like if you succeed? So there's a reason for these questions, because I'd like you to start thinking outwardly. So what we just discussed was who am I and what value do I bring to the world? But now we can go into a larger space and expand our own abilities to really make a difference in the world. And it's not just our own purpose for our lives, but also to see certain changes. And this is just a brief conversation. If you haven't figured out yet, it's just say like that. So there's really we're going to be working on it for the next 3 sessions, so today and 2 more. So maybe by the end of this program you will actually find a way how you can contribute and what changes you'd like to see. So who would like to discuss? So the questions would be again, what change would you like to see? Do you know how to do it? How will you do it? And what would it look like, this space that you're going to change? What would it look like if you actually succeed? So who has the answers, would like to start? Igor, you want to? No, David? Okay, go ahead.
I think that one good goal to look for as a community, it's not really a personal goal because it takes like a whole community to establish this. It's a more sustainable environment, and that means like more green cities, more renewable energy sources, more like green cars and less gas, less fuel, and that kind of benefit the world in like many ways. But the only way to accomplish that is to work as a community with it by establishing many different plans, by allocating funding to it, and most of all by education. So it needs to be, more of a widespread issue that needs to be, educated to everybody.
Yeah, that's great. How about others? Where are your passion lie? Igor, did you want to say?
Yeah, I was just wondering how I could reconnect it all into a kind of big concept. So for me, it's, well, if I do something, it's important to me that I do it well. And the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about startups is like apps and programs. And when you use an app, it is always obvious in the rare case that the person who created that app actually cared and drew out all of the little animations and stuff. But that's tough to reconnect kind of with my ideas about the future. So it's like two different paths which I cannot yet reconnect, but perhaps I will be able to do so in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20.
What is the other path? So what are you trying to connect? One is the technology, the use of technology, and how easy it should be for people to use.
Easy, intuitive stuff like that, yeah, and hotels. And the second is like the democratization of financial flows, because of course that's all perfectly good now, but if you want to transfer money, for example, it can be extremely complex if it's between nations, between physical persons in different nations, and so that's also something that's interesting to me.
Interesting, yeah. Decentralized financial economy. Okay, so maybe you'll find a way to do that. So we're going to be discussing many concepts. Christine?
I'm still thinking. I'm not exactly sure. My mind like automatically goes to creating spaces for people to express their own talents. So whether that be art, whether that be music, whether that be dance. And I know there's already a lot of spaces doing that, but encouraging people to enter those spaces, because I feel like a lot of people kind of shy back because, you know, they're scared or they don't think that it's for them. But really pushing people to try different things, and really hone into their abilities. I don't know what place that has as like some grand scheme idea, but I don't know. Maybe I'll figure it out.
Yeah. So it's your focus is on actually on an individual. So while spaces are present in the community, it's encouraging people to engage with those spaces, right? Okay, Andrews.
It's hard to kind of grasp what I want to change. I'd say it's a lot easier for me to just to see what other people want to change in the community, or you know where basically where I'm at, and to join that vision and to kind of do what I can do to help that happen. So for me, I would say that I have a personal kind of dream or understanding of what I want to do, what I want to lead. But I know that the skill set that I have is useful to help somebody else realize what they're passionate about.
Yeah, that's great. It's kind of in line with what Christine was saying. So that, you know, one thing is to have everything aligned, but how that you give the energy to the person to actually go and do something.
Yeah.
Okay. Andrew.
I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I know that in the future, my goal is to figure out something that I love to do, something that I don't like mind spending hours on and rest of my life on, as long as I love doing it.
Yeah.
And whatever that is, I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out hopefully.
Yes, sounds great. Okay, so let's go back to the next slide, and so we can look at. Many of you talked about changes that you'd like to bring to make the world a better place. You're still figuring it out, but there is actually a definition that it explains what you are trying to achieve, which is you're trying to bring some form of social innovation in a place. And social innovation, I like this definition that is on your screen. And social innovation is the process of developing and deploying effective solutions to challenging and often systemic social and environmental issues in support of social progress. And just to give you a note, that a lot of times the social innovation requires an active collaboration with government, business, and nonprofit sectors. I think it's to the point that David was making when he was talking about sustainable environments. It's definitely social innovation is required to move that forward. Also, Yegor was talking about changing the financial system, which is also can be a part of a social innovation and would require collaboration of government, business, and nonprofit sector. The question then stands, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Why is the problem worth solving? How big is the problem? Why do you want to solve it? And why? Would anyone care that you're solving it? And who? So when we talked about bringing some form of change, whether it's a change an individual and inspiring them, encouraging them to move forward, moving other people's ideas, or if it's your own, it just think about it. The problem define the market where you're going to be at. So you don't start and saying I'm going to do let's say I'm going to work and I want to change a space of sustainability. You actually start with identifying what the actual problem is and what does the product need to accomplish, and that what describes the benefits that the product should give to the customer. That's why I mentioned in one of the questions is what would the place look like? So right now, the space where you're at performs at a certain particular way, and if you create a change and bring that change to solve that issue, the problem will disappear, or you will make it smaller. And what would the place look like after you bring that product or that solution to the space? Does it make sense? So you start basically with a problem that you're trying to solve, not with a solution that you wanted to bring in. And then the question comes, many of you might be thinking, oh, I kind of know what's happening. I maybe even know which area I'd like to work on, but how would I really figure out to bring the change to a larger space? And there are many different ways to do it, but one of the ways that maybe some of you are familiar with, which is sustainable development goals, is the world best minds got together and they said there are 17 different areas that need our attention and that need to be moved in a specific direction. And they broke down all the problems into 17 areas. Some of them are pretty straightforward, which is no poverty, zero hunger, education, gender equality. Some may be a little bit more complex, as industry innovation and infrastructure, responsible consumption and production. So those are maybe more complex and include more things in them. But you can, if you study each one of them, and when you're thinking of, I don't like this particular aspect of life, or I don't like that particular aspect, the chances are that you will find that problem in one of those boxes is really high. In fact, I'm pretty sure that whatever you're thinking about can fit into one or multiple boxes. And there's always a great way to look at it. Like, I think David was talking about sustainable environments, and then he did mention that in order for that to happen, the many things have to fall in place, including the education. Education usually fits pretty much whatever the problem you're going to be trying to solve. So you can look at those sustainable development goals and kind of narrow down on where you'd like to be. And how to think through this process is there's also very helpful tools, and one of them is called Business Model Canvas, which consists of different boxes that if you think through all of those boxes, you pretty much can put together the business plan for the solution you're trying to create. First, you need to figure out who is the customer that you're trying to help. And again, I wanted to just point out, it does not have to be you starting a business. You can just look at this business model canvas as a way to look at your own life and figure out, and the customer then would be you yourself. So the customer segment, and there might be multiple customer segments that you're trying to help. What value are you bringing to those customers, and value, how is that value will be delivered to your customers, what kind of relationship will be established with your customers and the product that you're trying to create for them, how you're going to be making money, what are your revenue streams, who will be paying for it. There also could be two types of different customers. One who is a beneficiary, who is not paying for it, but somebody else is paying for it. So you're looking at the multiple customer segments. What resources do you need to have in order to deliver that value to your customers? And what would be activities that you need to perform to make that happen? Also, we were talking about, many of you mentioned the partnerships. I think Andrew Pillagy mentioned that. So you need to have collaboration with different people, and different activities need to be outsourced, and maybe resources need to be acquired through partnerships. And what the business model element is, the cost structure. How much would it cost you to deliver that? That would make a difference whether or not your business is profitable. There are multiple ways how it's presented in the business world. I'm sure some of you seen that and heard about it, but I'm just going to give you a different variations of the business model canvas and how it looks like. So this is just the standard business model canvas. There are also sustainable business model, which also, like if we're talking about a sustainable environment industry, for example, there are some subsidies that governments assign. So this particular model actually takes that into consideration. They also look at the impact, the positive impact that you are making with your solution, and the negative impact. And the goal would be obviously to maximize the positive and minimize the negative. Then there is a social business model canvas, which is, looks at the social components and look at the surpluses and where they will be used. Then there is a flourishing business canvas that takes, when you're looking at the product, it takes into consideration the environmental impact and societal impact, and not just the pure business structure of it. So you're looking at the whole ecosystem, and looking at the needs of that, and taking those into consideration. And we're going to be going back and actually looking at, for the sake of our discussions, we're looking at the basic business model. Now, how do you fit in here? Remember this structured buckets of your leadership talents. And we, at the beginning of our conversation, we kind of discussed, where do you fit? What kind of value do you bring to the team? We did talk about, it's important to have a team around, because you can't be all things to all people. So I just wanted to look at it again. So they're executing type of leaders, who are leaders that make things happen. They catch idea and work to build solutions. There are people who have an influencing capacity. Their teams are reaching broader audience, and they're selling inside and outside of the organization. There are also leaders that are really good at building relationships with people. They create teams really well. They hold the team together, and they're strategic thinkers who are focused on possibility, absorb information, analyzing, kind of giving a little higher level of thought to any problems. And believe it or not, all these leaders have a place on business model canvas, if you look at that. So there, to figure out what the customer segment you would like to serve, you would need to go and talk to a lot of different people. So people with relationship building skills and people who are able to strategize, they would be probably best for this particular box. But when you're going and trying to sell the product and create partnership, the people with influencing skills are valuable. Then there are certain groups such as figuring out the key activities and going and doing it. Executionists are really good to figure out the actual to do. What are we going to do and how we're going to create the activities. So if you look at the whole business model canvas, there are places for each type of the person, and understanding where your value is, going back to the beginning of our conversation. What value do you bring to the team, and how you can fit into a particular structure of an organization? I think it's very important. Many of you here are students. Most of you, I think, are here students. And when you're going to be looking at jobs, you wanted to make sure that you fit your own talents in a particular job, not because you can do that job, but because you're also bringing the actual value to that space. So let's maybe stop here for a minute. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen, and or maybe I'll keep it here, and maybe we can talk about who thinks what value they can bring, and maybe you have questions that we can talk about. So I want to hear your feedback up to this point, where you're at and what questions you might have.
And a question that I kind of that popped up in my mind is, why should one's professional life serve all of one's needs in terms of leadership and in general? So perhaps one may be a very strategic leader at work, right? But then he may get home and he's focused on executing a summer trip, for example, right? Why is that necessarily bad?
No, it's not bad. I think what you will find is that there are two different types of people, and who are fit perfectly in a specific set of actions, and they're a mixture of them. They're strategic executionists, like me, for example. I do like to strategize, but then I really like the to-do list, and I just go and accomplish it. So there are people who are strategizing with people in mind. The numbers are not really necessarily, unless it's they're touching a person. So it's a combination of things. And of course, our lives are mixed. So, like, let's say your example, you're saying the person goes home and they're executing on a trip. I would bet that if person is strategic, that executing on a trip, before he says, okay, we're gonna go and buys the ticket, he's probably already thought about it for a while. He'll probably already analyzed where he wants to go. He probably already had a higher level of conversations before he actually goes and buys the ticket. It doesn't mean that the person who is strategic, he's not gonna do things. People do things, and there are different talents that help them to move forward. For strategic people, for example, it's understanding the larger picture. So it's, if you tell a person who is strategic that we're gonna go and take this class today, I bet that the person will ask you a question: why do we need to take this class today? they automatically ask you a higher level to see if it would feed into their goals, into their journeys. There are people, executionists, who are more likely, if you're going to be talking to them and how to recognize them, you're going to be talking about these big ideas, how you want to create this company, how you want to change the world. And in their minds, they're already writing to-do lists, and they're going to be stopping you at some point and saying, hey, what do we need to do? I have not done anything yet. I feel like I'm a failure because I haven't achieved anything. Like, we didn't do anything. Like, stop talking already. So those people, they're automatically bringing you back to, let's just do something. We'll think about it as we go. While you as a strategic person might be thinking, no, we're not gonna, we haven't figured out yet. Let's figure it out first. Then also a person influencing, they're already going and talking about your ideas. They're already, like, you mentioned something, they're like, wow, this is great, and they're already calling everybody and talking to someone. Can that influencing person and make things happen? Yes, sure they can. But where their biggest power is in that particular space, so that they're not going to feel, for example, if you're still trying to, if you're executionist, if you're that purple or pink box, and you're asked to think strategically, at some point you're just going to blow up. Like, you wanted to go and do something, so you kind of, like, you understanding that you don't put yourself in a position where you constantly have to strategize, because you're going to be feeling unfulfilled. What are your guys' thoughts? Can you see that in your life? I can give you multiple examples, but I wanted to see if you maybe noticed in your own personalities, how you use your strengths and talents, and or in lives of others. Igor, did I answer your question? Is it?
Yeah. It's just that the question I wrote, because that's like precisely what I normally do. So I was interested if that's like a defect or something.
Oh, no, there are no defects. It actually starts with you acknowledge, you're being understanding where your thoughts are. So if you're a strategic person, you probably, if somebody goes and says, let's just buy a ticket there, you're like, oh, okay, let's think first. So what are the others thinking?
I mean, I see there's a picture of certain roles that can be executed in certain places. I think for me, what speaks is in the last picture that you showed with all of the different leadership types in certain parts of the business model. Is that when I try to do things that I'm not necessarily as good at, like you said, your mind starts to explode. You don't understand what's going on, and then when you do what you are actually good at, then you feel like you're in the right place. So there have been times when I've done things that I'm not supposed to be doing, that I should really be looking for someone else to do. But I always have this feeling that, I need to do everything. I need to be this universal person that can do all things, and like you said, be all things to all people, which in some sense is a good principle, because it's a way of trying to empathize with people. But at the same time, it can also be detrimental to you, because if you try to do everything, then you achieve nothing. I think that's kind of what I'm grasping at right now. So for me, it's more of an understanding. So it was interesting to see which kind of leadership types, which people take part in which processes of the business model, which is very interesting to see. Because there were a couple of places where I didn't really understand who would do what and where. So that was interesting to look at.
Mm-hmm. How about David or Andrew, your comments? David, we actually can't see you. Your chair. The pilot is gone. Oh, here we are. Any thoughts?
So each of those boxes that were in the business model, do they represent? They present like strategic. What are the other options?
Yeah, so let's take a look at this again. And this is just a guide. You can pretty much figure out if you look at, and I can send you both slides, the one what represent what, and then you can try to kind of use your imagination and see where would that particular type of person fit in. So if you are, for example, starting a startup, and you're gonna be writing a business plan of some kind, or using the business model canvas, thinking through, and you need to people within your group. You need some people. So this kind of helps you to understand what kind of people to look for. If you have all executionists, it's all fine, but those are the people maybe will have a harder time to actually strategizing the concept. So they'll be easy on going and talking to somebody and doing something, but not really creating the strategy. If you have people who have relational strength, they might get stuck in people's feelings around them. So you might want to have somebody who can push through, which would be the people with executionist strengths. But then you send an executionist to ask questions from your customers, and they might miss half of their pain points because they were focused on getting things done, and they didn't hear maybe the actual pains, which are important for you to know as you're starting startup. David, did it help you? Did it answer your question?
Yeah. So I think that I would fit into a more, kind of like value propositions. Because that's where, honestly, like, I believe that a lot of the core of the business structure lies. It is practically what you are giving to the world, and how it can benefit. So when you're kind of framing that, it's very important to, outline that with multiple perspectives. And I believe that one of my strengths is bringing a valuable perspective to any sort of idea. So I think I could easily tune into that role.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Andrew, any thoughts about this business model?
I'm not really sure where I'll lie in this business model. I'm not. I mean, we just went like this in the past, and it was a bit I don't know, it was a bit weird with my brother. Just like we're like the same person. So a little bit of conflict, but
conflict of interest.
yeah. But I'm very similar to David in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this is it's a very visual. So if you are, even if you're creating your own life and you're saying, okay, what can I do for my own life? And then you might say, okay, maybe I'm just do person. Maybe somebody can help me to strategize my life. And then what would happen is, like, you might need to have a coach or a mentor or somebody who can give you the higher level perspective. So then you can go and do things. And so that's pretty much, it can be applied, this structure can be applied to anything. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna look at our next slide, and this is where we were talking about, David was mentioning about value proposition. So let's see. So how we're doing value proposition design is important. And as we mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, it's important to understand the needs and problems of your clients, of your customers, before you come up with any types of solution. So going back to Yegor's point, if he wants to, the change he wants to see is democratization of finance, it's not coming up with the actual solution first, which could be a technical solution. I have this, and then not to find anybody who is going to be using it, but him saying that the app somebody actually thought through and put some effort into it. Those most of the times, the apps that you actually want to use, they started, the people who created them started with thinking about you in mind first before they started the app. And so how to look at your customer. So you see, let's say you see a problem in the world, and you see who has that problem. So what can I solve? How can I make life of that person better? So for the sake of this conversation, let's talk about that it is a person per se. What are the jobs that this customer of yours has to do? It could be a functional jobs, like they have to fill out forms. Can be social jobs. They'll be like connecting to people, personal jobs, let's say planning a trip. There could be emotional jobs. They can be connecting on a deeper level with their families, and all different sorts of jobs. And so, your goal is to either alleviate their pains. What could be pains? Different risks. The person is, let's say in finance, they might be losing money if they're transferring money between countries. Then there could be obstacles. They're unable to transfer money between the countries. And then there might be undesired pains that in order for them to transfer the money, they have to, let's say, wait for 1 month until somebody receives it on the other end. So you're understanding what is the actual job your customer has to do. And when I'm talking about saying job, it's not necessarily an employment. This is just a task. So you can use any other word, but when the task needs to be accomplished, what are the pains that your client or customer is facing, and your product will help them and make that pain go away or minimize the pain. But then also there could be solutions that will the customer, after you introduce your solution, they will have certain gains. They will be, I wanted to make somebody's life better, so by transferring money, it will be so fast that it will be it will make me happy. What are the features that are required? Like, they will not even be discussed, because they're have to be there. The gain has to happen in order for a person to use your solution. And only then, once you understand your customer, and you can interview, let's say there maybe 100 of different customers that you will have to approach and ask them questions that are solely focused on trying to figure out if there is a problem. You're not even trying to tell them what you wanted to do. Rather, you're asking them, how do you do the work right now, and where is the problem? And only then, once you figure out first of all, who your customer is and what pains they have, what kind of jobs they have to do, and what are their pains that you can solve, only then you start creating the value proposition where David said that he would be good at. Once you bring him and tell him what the problems are and what people like to see, then he can figure out what value propositions you can offer to him. And value map consists of your products and services. What can you do for that customer? There can be tangible or intangible. There can be digital, financial. It can be, all sorts of different values you can bring to the customers, but they have to be able to relieve the pain that you already identified, or they have to create some excitement in your customers for them to use it. Let's see. So going back to what I was just saying is that it's a very, very important part to observe your customer first, and only then you move on to design the product for them. Okay, so let's discuss that. What are the thoughts and maybe where you fit and what solutions you would like to propose and maybe discuss. We can discuss. Just let's have a conversation.
But doesn't the ideal product, in terms of the value map, does everything all at once, and that's quite real. So like you can relieve the pain, like sending money from Moscow to East and Book now. Well, last month used to be quite cheap, but it was, but it still brought the sender and the receiver quite a lot of pain, simply because the people that one had to interact with to either send or to receive the money were not the kind of people that you would ideally want to interact with, right? And just re-educating these clerks, right, could relieve a lot of the pain. So the product itself does not change, but the pain is gone. Then you can create gain by optimizing fees and making the product itself a little bit better. And while you're in the process of making the product better, you can make it interesting, cute, or whatever you wish. As in, you have to add like the secret sauce on top. Yes, so, and that's all quite possible on the example of sending money through orders. Yes.
Yeah, and so this is a very good point. You can do both. You have to relieve the pain, or you have to add the gain. What you would have to consider is what is your market and what are your customers you're using right now, and if somebody else, what would the cost of them switching to your solution be? Who is the competition? And it's called Kano model. It's Yegor, just for you, so you can take a look at that. Is basically you're a startup. Your resources are limited, so you're not large corporation that is creating new product for their clients, and then they have unlimited resources to put into that product to put it on market. You are a startup, so you have to really know the place, because you only have so much money, so you don't have the time and energy with your product to hit all the points. So the point will be, what do I do? There is a whole list of things that you can do, but there is a kind of model that kind of takes you through the process of figuring out what do customer expect. So let's look at a automotive industry, for example. You can come up with a new exciting vehicle. But what do the customer expect? Like if you come up with some sensor that nobody has, but your car does not have seat belts, for example, nobody would buy that, no matter how good your sensor is. So there are certain features that are required for the product, and then you're adding, like, everybody does that, but I'm gonna do this little extra thing and who will be that segment, my segment, who will be looking at that particular thing as a excitement delighter or pain reliever, like a pill. So it's yes, you can do both, but for a startup world, you'll find out if you only have, let's say $5,000 to spend, it's really difficult to do everything, right? So you have to focus on something very particular. And also, you have to take into consideration how would you convince people to move from what they already using to start using your product. Any other thoughts? No.
It was interesting to hear about first observing the customers, the consumers, before designing the product. Because sometimes in my head, usually, I'd always think about designing what it is I'm trying to give the customers, and then observing the customers with that. But hearing that should be the second step, I'm guessing, is first observing, then designing. And I guess is probably that you have to observe after designing as well, just to make sure that you work on what it is that you're offering, to fine tune your business model. So that was very, I guess, insightful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, there is a moment of constant iteration. You constantly have to do that. First of all, let's talk about like observing or creating a product and then observing. I think it's important to think through first, who is your customer, what is his profile, and we are always asking the people that we work with to create a specific persona. And persona would be specifically all startups, when they create a product, they start saying, oh, it's good for everybody. Everybody, of course, everybody wants to transfer money. Of course, everybody from young to old wanted to be done quickly and with less fees. But not everybody does it the same way or has the same intentions when they're doing it. So finding out that one person, one segment, for example, it could be a woman who has children and who has a family outside of the country where she lives. So then you go and you find out how many women like that have children and have parents outside of the country. And then you go and you see, it's called customer journey. So you start mapping customer journey, like you literally go with her to every place, not maybe physically going, but through the app or through other places, and you know exactly where does she get stuck. And you do that with 100 women who have a family outside of the country, and you sit with them and say, this is what she does and what her issues are, where does she get frustrated, at which point of her journey she gets frustrated. It could be when the money's on the other side and the parents are not receiving it on time, or maybe she is the customer but parents are older parents, so your app has to be done in certain way that on the other people on the other side are understand what they're doing. Does it make sense? So you kind of plan the journeys first in observing that person. Otherwise, you create something and they're like, oh, it's never been our problem. Or they'll say that it has been a problem, but it's really not a big problem. But if you solve something else, which you could have saved yourself months of work if you actually walked with that person or talked to that person first. It's called quick prototyping. You do quick prototype, just enough features there so that you can see if it works or not.
Like the MVP?
Yeah, it's even before the MVP, a minimum viable product, there's just a prototype. Like just even if it's a sketch, the person walks through the process. David, Andrew, you guys had experience with the designing of the products in terms of you've been through courses like that. What are your thoughts? Have you done any of the products? I know, David, you were saying you started a club at university. Have you considered talking to your customers?
So our club is picking up next semester. So it's still in the development phase, but we have developed a business model canvas for it. Kind of like created a solid outline for it, but we have not gotten into like the communication stage yet.
Because to Yegor and Andrew, who might not know, can you tell them what are you trying to do?
So I'm starting it's kind of like a health and wellness club at my school, University of Wisconsin. I'm co-founding it with my roommate. So we were working on it this last semester. Creative business model canvas is basically a club aimed to target college students, and it's meant to better the lifestyle habits of college students, and that is through nutritional habits, lifestyle habits, and all sorts of workout routines. But we're just gonna we're gonna be partnering with companies, startups that have similar goals. Some companies that collect data about nutrition, as such, to bring them in and educate college students while also like hosting events, different discussion panels, etc.
But that's like more of a club that's focused on like lifting, nutrition, and that's it. Or is there like some kind of sport, maybe martial arts? Huh? So just
no,
lifting, yeah.
There's not. I mean, unless we're like distributing kind of like a workout routine, which we're not going to be like hosting workouts. We're just going to be like telling you like you should go to the gym this much, and this much. You should eat. It's kind of more of like an advice club.
Okay.
But it's also meant like to connect with companies. Bring in different perspectives for college students. Kind of it's more of an education. Because I was a first year college student last year, and we live like shit. We eat like shit. Our habits are atrocious. So that's like I can say that for most of the people that I was living with, at least in my building. So
yes. So doing the education, I think it's important that one thing is to start the club and bring those solutions, but another thing is to really understand what would make these people to show up to the events that you're saying. So that would be the next step for you for next semester to really go and interview who would you like to see, what would make you actually leave everything what you are doing and start coming to our events, right?
Absolutely.
Andrew, what are your thoughts? Are you thinking of anything? I know you're a tech guy, so you might have been thinking about tech solutions to something.
Well, for my with a few kids in my major, we're thinking about creating a self-driving golf cart that drives around campus by itself. Just like show off to like you constantly have a bunch of people look at our campus because like first of all it's very beautiful, and also like a lot of kids just like come visit. So I feel like if there's a self-driving golf cart where kids would want to come visit the school, therefore the school's going to fund the entire project, and it'll look good on my resume.
Oh yeah, it would look really cool on your resume. Self-driving golf cart, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's going to be funding it?
School.
The school. Yeah, that's great.
Andrew, how much of the components for the cart in terms of both the hardware and the software are kind of like already ready-made parts that you take and put together, and
So-
how much are like new packed?
We haven't, yeah. This is all just an idea phase right now. We haven't even gone to the school yet. We've talked to some professors that will like be on board with us in the project, so it gets more liability. But so far, we don't have the school does not know about this. We have no funding, as well as it hasn't gone anywhere yet. That's the issue. But next semester, hopefully, we'll bring it up to the school and they'll admit the idea.
David is shaking his hand. Maybe David, you can help Andrew with communication on how to communicate to the people at his school.
We nerds don't know how to talk.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. So let me just jump onto this slide, and this is something to Igor. I think I touched on it briefly, but questions to consider. I think especially for also for both, I think, and David and Andrew, you were mentioning, do you have multiple target customer segments? Do these segments have different reasons for adopting your product? There's some noise. Yeah.
Andrew, mute yourself.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So do you have, let's repeat it. Do you have multiple target customer segments? Do these segments have different reasons for adopting your product? Is your target customer different than your beneficiary? And how much behavioral change, that's to Igor's point, how much behavioral change does your product require? What will you need to do to overcome the reasons not to adopt? It's the same to David's question. What would you need to do for people actually show up at your club? Let's talk about those questions. Can you give me an example when I say your target customer might be different than your beneficiary? What do you think I mean?
Yeah, I wanted to really expand on that because, the the service that comes to mind is the whole industry of direct consumer brokers, like Robinhood, Coinbase. It's all the same thing. Where the target customer and the user of the product is high school Joe, and the beneficiaries are the big banks and the venture investors, the real professionals in the space. But my question is, if one looks to create a business where the target customer is indeed different than the beneficiary, what should one be mindful of? What should one look at? Any ideas? Any help?
Yeah. So there is actually I would explain it a little bit differently. So your target customer is the customer who actually going to be paying you for your product. So the beneficiary is those who will benefit from using the product. So sometimes as a consumer, you get a product for free. But actually, you're a beneficiary. You're using that product. You're using, let's say, Facebook. You're using Facebook. It's free, but it is actually not free because the target customers of the Facebook are your advertisers, and they're putting their products in front of you. They are paying the money, but you are benefiting from the product. In a social space, when we talked about social innovation, and when you are trying to help somebody, for example, in people in the poor countries, you want them to be able to use your product, some kind, your financial tool, but it's a good for them, but they're not going to be paying for it. They're going to be benefiting from using the product, but they're just too poor to pay for you for enough money for the product. So your job is to say, okay, who would benefit from these people using the product and can pay for it, and it's a different business model that you would need to create, just to really think through who will be the paying customer, which they will have a sorts of different sorts of requirements for your solution, and then beneficiaries. And then we're talking about what behavioral change. Yes, it will be free, but people don't want to use it. An example would be is that there was a very famous Clinton initiative of a clean stove, where the US Clinton Foundation, they spent a lot of money on bringing clean stoves to Arabic countries. And after a certain period of time, women, first of all, most of the people didn't use them, and women started using them as a side tables. So they just covered those little stoves with a blanket or whatever, with a cloth, and they are using it as a table. So that initiative is considered to be one of the failing examples of nobody really asked the beneficiary whether or not they're going to be using the product. Same thing is happening with wells, where there are organizations that are drilling wells. They're in Africa, for example, and they raise a lot of money. They put a lot of effort into drilling those wells, and the people take those wells, the structure apart, and damage it, because the going for a water is a social event. So some women even damage those wells because they want that time for themselves as they're gonna go get the water. So there's a lot of different customer segments, and the product has to satisfy each one of them, and in a different way. Does it make sense?
Yes, but I also want to ask, from the perspective of a minimum viable product,
Mm-hmm.
Each customer segment is each customer segment costs something. Am I correct in this statement?
You mean what cost the people are paying?
No. To make a product that costs $100 per month, and that can be used by 100 people, costs $5,000. Okay, so yeah, but that is like blonde white men,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
And to adapt that product to the needs, for example, of black women with kids, would cost another $3,000.
Okay.
Am I correct that that is typically the case?
Of course, to adapt the product to a different audience, then you decide whether or not you'd like to expand that product. For a minimum viable product, it's not the case. You don't go to a different customer segment with minimum viable product for the first segment. It's when you're ready to expand. You already tapped all of your market of white men. They're already using it, and you're saying, okay, now all of the white men are now using our product. Where else we can expand? Only then you expand. You don't start tapping into other products. It's just resources. You don't have those resources with minimum viable product. You first need to prove the concept that this product works for that white man. before you move to a Black woman. Does
Yeah,
it make
and
sense?
the chief product market fit. Yes.
Right. Yes. Yes. So, David, yeah, what are your thoughts? Because you have already like a plan. What do you want it to do?
So I kind of have my customer base established. It's just to fully reach my customers, which are college students. Actually, mostly college students. I basically have two customers. My other customers are technically, in a way, the companies I'm also bringing into the club, bringing into the meetings, bringing into the panels. But to reach the students, I would have to make them see like why you said it yourself, like why my club is worth coming to. And that is, first of all, by making them see why their lifestyle is flawed, and how we can bring light to how to better like each student's lifestyle. And then as companies wise, the companies that we're bringing in, kind of it's easier to establish to them like the change that we're making with these college students, because it's kind of like, okay, yeah, they see it right away. And preferably, these companies would have this similar goals as us, is like bettering lifestyle habits. So I think it would be much easier to bring in companies rather than students, because students kind of have to do a lot of.
My suggestion would be for Dave. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. My suggestion for you would be to connect with your behavioral sciences department at school and just bring on as an advisor the person who has behavioral science professor of some kind, and ask them, because I'm not sure, I'm not expert, but I think by showing people what they are doing wrong, it does not in most cases it does not work as a motivation for change. It could be that in order for them to hook them on to keep on coming, you might need to provide them with free product. For example, if somebody comes and to speak, an organization comes and talks about nutrition, they might bring some healthy food. So you might have to spend money on feeding those students so that they show up to the club. But it would benefit your club if you, and it would benefit you professionally, because you can start doing maybe research with, I think I was talking to Andrew about that as well. Maybe you can start doing research with your professors at your university, engage them in it, and they can do some kind of research based on your work. So then it will be looking good on your resume as well when you're going to be applying for a job, that you already were part of the research and you have this behavioral science skills, how to build a product for consumers. So something like that might be interesting. But you're right. I mean, first of all, you need to convince companies to show up. But it's like those, the marketplaces where it doesn't work like a Uber. If there are no drivers, customers are not going to show up, but the drivers are not going to be there if there are no customers, right? So you kind of have to solve that issue.
Absolutely.
So Andrew, how about you? What are your customer segments and how you're going to be targeting them differently? You need to sell the idea to your school first, right?
Well, the idea is that it will attract more attention, because the more people that are interested in the school, the more money the school gets, and the happier the school is. So with this little investment, with this project, which would probably be pretty expensive, but at the end of the day, when kids are paying $70,000 per tuition per year, that's pennies for them.
Yeah. Okay. That would be your asking a question. So your customer will be a school. They would have to, and you have to, the benefit that you give them, the value proposition will be that you will increase the number of students signing up and paying for the school.
Yeah. Especially since Miami is up and coming in technology. Like right now, there's the Bitcoin Central, but like the cryptocurrency is central of America right now, maybe the world even, but there's more technology flowing in. I can see more startups, more everything like that. So when kids start realizing, oh, this school might be pretty good in this field, then we have bigger computer science division in the school and everything like that.
Mhm.
So it works both ways.
Yes.
Perhaps,
Yeah. Go ahead.
Perhaps you can use the golf cart to find the sunniest place on campus and use the solar power to mine crypto.
That's really smart. It'll be a crypto mining self-driving golf cart.
Yes, of course.
Great. I love it.
You take Igor to do the financial product for you.
Igor, I need you on my team, bro.
Here's the ideation really flowing, right?
Yeah, Team Igor.
To Igor, yeah. So that's pretty much it, you guys, for today. So let's just have a conversation. I'm gonna stop sharing. Are there any slides you'd like to discuss that maybe I can go back and we can talk a little more about?
I think it would just be useful to, like, at the end of the program, receive all of the slides as a sort of memento.
Sure.
Like,
yes.
to then possibly go back.
Mm-hmm.
Not right now.
Yeah. Okay. So how's this for the last two sessions today and a few days ago? How does it connect dots in your minds? Is there something that you're still missing? Is there something you still wanted to think about? Maybe we can bring it up for our next session next week.
Well, I found a lot of value in kind of focusing more on the business aspects. So last session we focused a lot on our strengths, and it's made it was kind of like more out of the blue. But today we connected them with a lot of different business strategies, which I find very useful. So I think if we keep going in that direction, like a lot more ideas and a lot more a lot more ideas will come to light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the strengths of today's session was definitely in the more practical approach. But the weakness of today's session, from what I've noticed, is the lack of diversity. I would never have known that I would say this. But it was actually like noticeable that it's a single viewpoint. So yes, it is great to focus on faces, but it's also, but it is also beneficial to look at other viewpoints also.
Look at other what?
At other points of view.
Points of view. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Andrew, what are your?
I agree with that, as well as just the more, like in the future, the more brainstorming we do with our ideas, like the deeper we go, like to each level, to make it as possible and feasible of an idea, then the better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Was it helpful to actually be able to talk about your own ideas today?
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
I think that's the most useful part.
Yeah, talking about them, then like just diving into each section of the idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's big. Yeah.
And so, since I think Yegor asked a lot of those like particular questions, and my answers are based on standard entrepreneurial practices. So obviously you can look deeper and look more into, because this course is not really about entrepreneurship per se, but more like how to look at it's a mindset. But you can look at like into Kana model and how to pick the features for the product you're trying to solve. I can, we can talk more about that. But I think, yes, what was really helpful is that because you started asking those questions about a particular product, it helped, everybody else to start asking about questions about their own particular product. So it's the value of this course is a lot of times is in questions that you are asking and the comments that you are making. So that guides the conversation as well. Yeah, so prepare questions for next time. Look at the business models. Keep on thinking where you fit, because I think, if you put yourself in the right place on the journey of you creating certain products and certain change in the world, if you put yourself in the right place, it will just everything will fall in place.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for today's sessions, and we'll see you next week.
All right.
Okay.